Hi, so this is Stephanie Toman. I'm continuing the second part two of the Access M5, which is part of the EastDale Foundation modules. So we're going to look in this series of video, going to look at table relationships again, although we did look at them in the last session. We're going to have another look at that in an existing database. We're going to look at forms, some examples and things you need to do for the exam and syllabus, look at queries and reports and bring all of that stuff in. Right then, so back to our materials that you can find in lecture materials. We're going to open up the demo clubs. Remember the slides there that go across all of this if you want more detail or to revise in a different way. So earlier we looked at the back end of our tables that have been created, and we looked in the design view and we found that they can have lots of different field properties. So we can do short time. If we had a start date, if we look at the front for start date, you can see that it's a short date. We go in. Remember, we could change it and we could put a drop down there and do a medium date. And then back in, it always makes us save it, and then all of them change into a medium date. So there's really quick ways. Remember, the field property will ensure that the inputter, the data user, or the data inputter puts things in a consistent manner. For example, if you put a validation rule in that you need to use B sciences for biosciences, etc., then that message, you can put the text in it and come up and tell the user what you want. Okay, but what we're going to look at now, we've had a look at tables earlier and we had a look at relationships. Just a quick look back at relationships. Some things we can think about when we're creating them. The show table was one way of bringing in a table. So in an exam, if they ask you to do a relationship between one table and another table, it's not there. This is how you would find it and add it. Okay. The other thing is, if we're going to be doing a relationship, let's delete this relationship. So right click on it, you can edit it and delete, but you still have the edit up here as well. So you've still got all these features. Let's delete this one. It won't delete it because I have the club table open. So be really careful. I said in the last series that if you've got things going on with relationships, they won't allow you to change them. So it's locked in. So let's try it now. And there it's gone. So to create a relationship, if asked, between the contact and the club table, using the contact ref, you start with the contact table first, as it says in the question. You click on the contact ref, hold your cursor down on your mouse and drag it over, make sure you drop it on top of the contact ref in the club table so that you see different tables there and the same fields here. By enforcing referential integrity, what you're doing is ensuring that there is no invalid data, no redundant data in your database. So what it means is it has to have a contact ref in order for you to put information about their club membership. So they have to exist in order to put in the detail of the many. If it doesn't exist, it won't allow you to put it in. So you don't get lots of information about a club name, all of the information about contact, etc., if that person in the contact area doesn't exist. The same goes for the other way around. If you put in a contact ref and you didn't have any information here, they'd just be sitting there on their own with an ID with no joined up information. If we double click on that again, let's make sure I run it properly. If we look at these two items, when the ensure referential integrity is off, that's okay. That's the first thing you might notice, that it's just a one-to-one, it's just joined. But if we make it a one-to-many, then that way we're ensuring that you get one unique identifier, contact ref, and the information that's connected to that with regard to the club that person's attending or clubs. With regard to these two items, they don't have to be ticked on just because they're lit up. The first one means that if you tick it in the real world, you will allow somebody to come along and delete information in one of the tables, which means any connected related information will automatically be updated too. And this can happen in seconds. So it can make quite a big difference to your data. The second one, the delete related records, allows you to cascade that deletion. If you decided to delete a club information record from the table, it would then go on to delete everything else that's connected to that club record. So be very, very careful with those. In the real world, you would always use a copy of the original database to test out any changes that you're going to make. So we're going to OK that. We're happy with that. So remember, that's how you do it. And if you're going to edit, double click, right click, and then you can change things. Okay, so and then close that down. It may ask you to save it, which you would save. So moving on, we're now going to look at some query examples. So query is about extracting information. So this is a contact query. So if I right click on it and go to design view, this is using the contact table. It's using particular fields from the contact table. Remember how we bring them down. So if I just get rid of contact, delete. Let's use the delete key. And I grab the contact ref and drop it there. It drops it back in again. So you're dropping them, or double clicking on them will drop them in automatically by in sequence. You may not want the initials in your, you can either delete it or you can take the display out. So when you take the display out, remember when you run it, there's no initial in there. Back in again, tick on the initial, run it, the initials are there. But you could actually just take them out because you don't want that information. You may decide not to have a hobby and delete that. And then what I've done in here is I've asked for criteria of a town starting with L, and we've used an L asterisk. So what you would do, let's go to the full data and run. We've got a few towns, so let's use any town beginning with H, Hilbury. So we go to the across the fields, town and city, into the criteria field here, and type in Hilbury. Right. Just going to go back in, check out. Well, let's take that out. I think I've done the spelling wrong. Really important. Hilbury. So I could actually just copy that and paste it in. Click away, and the speech marks come around. So if I wanted Hilbury and I run, I just get Hilbury. If I wanted to do it a quick way, I could just type H and asterisk. H and asterisk means any town beginning with H. Click away, and it puts the like and the speech marks wrap around the H and the asterisk because they're characters, letters. Then when you run it, you get all the towns beginning with H. You could go on to do T, click away, run, you've got one there. And so that's using a asterisk to represent anything following that letter. It's a really quick way. Close that and you can save. This one here, the date query between, it's probably one of the trickier ones. If we go into the design view, let's double click in the junction just like you can on a database front-end datasheet view, and you also can in spreadsheets. And what we can do here is we've been asked to put in criteria for a start date that's later than or after, they will use language like that, and including the 16th. So they're going to be putting greater than and equal to the 16th, and it's going to be 01/208, and I've got before, less than, but starting on, could say it like that, 23/03/208. Notice that when I click away, it's going to put some hashes in to fix it for me, and it's also going to change the and. And you can see that it's done that there. So it now looks like what it did before we modified it. So when we run this, in the exam, you're not really going to know because you won't know the dates initially. But you won't be able to really know if it's worked in a matter of seconds. So just trust yourself. Make sure you put it in carefully. And watch for those words after, before. Make sure that you do include them. And if you include the date itself, then you're going to put an equal sign in, which always follows a chevron. So that's a way of putting that one. So I'm going to close that one. And then we're going to look at this one, drama and swimming. So right click and straight into design view. This is where I've got two criteria. So you've got criteria there and all there. So I'll take the 3 out because that's another, I can put that in a minute for 3 hours. So first we're going to run it with drama and swimming. And that brings up those two features. If we were going to put 3 hours in as a criteria and run, just one of them comes up because it's got 3 hours. So you can do more than one criteria. You can do 2 criteria in there. You could have another bit of criteria to really narrow it down. So it's about playing and finding it. When you run it, it's just a snapshot still. It's not until you save it using the save box that it actually becomes something that you can run continuously or use over and over again. Be aware in the exam, it's really important that when you do an modifying or changing an existing query, you are expected to click on that save at the end before you hit answer, even though they don't tell you to. It's the only one really in the series of exams that don't instruct you to save. But if you've changed and modified a query, whether simulated or not, you actually have changed the content of it. So you do have to hit the save. It's still called the same. It's just changing and hitting the save. Okay, so more that we can look at, for examples, is the not drama. So if we open that one in design view, so here you can see the drama, and it's got 2 chevrons, greater than and less than and greater than opposite each other. So quite a distinctive sign. And then drama. So if we were putting that in, let's run it. So you've got everything but drama. Let's change it to chess. So let's take that out. Let's go in. So remember chevron, chevron, chess. Click away and it puts the speech marks in for you. So then when you run it, it's everything but chess. Okay, so that's a not, a non-matching criteria is what they call it. Let's close that. I won't save it, and let's have a look at the facility query for a wildcard. Okay, so if we run this, we could pick up some of this longer. It's got lots of text. We could pick up anything begin with S really. We'll bring out swimming apparatus and the sports equipment. So if we've got the facility name, we could put S asterisk, click and run. And then we come up with those two and the corresponding information. So queries, remember, I'm just going to close this. I'm just going to do a quick creating a query just to remind you, Query Wizard will not do what we need. So we need to use the query design. Let's drop a table on there and close. Remember to drop your fields they're asking you about onto the table. They generally in the exam ask you to save it at the beginning. You don't have to, but remember to save it, use the save box. That will name it. It brings this up here, so I can just call it query 1 just for now. And then think about some things like criteria. What field are you placing it under? Is it a something you can use an asterisk with? They're asking you to use a wildcard. That's what it means. Is it a between where you have to use greater than and equal to? Is it a not, a non-match? You might need to use that. Is it more than one criteria? And then some other things you need to think about. I showed you the show and hide display. So that's these. So if you're asked not to display something and run it, you're not displaying the club breath by taking that out. So that's, you don't delete it, you just take it out. Other things you could do is, if we look at the front end, you could actually sort things as well. You've got this sort feature. If you click in, there it is, and you could also run it with something ascending order like that. Did it run it? Club, oh, not club ref, club name. So you see how it didn't change? I noticed it didn't change. I should have seen it like that. So it's really easy to get the wrong one. These are right tiny little things, and be really careful. Okay, so that's the queries, extracting and analysing data. And we're going to move on to our forms. So club entry form, double click. So club entry form is an example of how it can be changed. You can bold and things. You can go into the design view of it. Some things to be aware of in the test could be that you may need to change a form header label. So if you were asked to change it to a different color, for example, you might need to go to the Home tab, or you could have it on one of these format tabs here, put shape fill there, and it will change it there. If you need to put in a automatic date on the Design tab, you've got your title and date and time there. That's what this little box is. If we delete that, so we can come out again, try and delete the edge of it. So click on the edge of it, and then if you add the date and time, you can take the time off and OK, and there's that automatic date coming on. So when I go back into form view, you can see it there. If you need to go to a particular record, you can jump to a record that way by typing in 7, use enter, and it goes to record 7. You can isolate a record by its sidebar there, and you would need to do this in order to delete that one record. Because when you look at records on a print preview, do you remember print preview going print and in print preview that way? And they will be stacked up on top of one another. So you will tend to print them all out if you don't isolate it or delete them all. Okay, so make sure that you click on a sidebar, and then if we do, let's try the print preview again without clicking on the sidebar. It's not isolated, so that's fine. So close print preview. Not really much more going on with a form. Excuse me, there's lots of them here. But generally, if you change a name at all in a form, then you need to make sure that you use the form wizard, because the simple form, even if they use the language simple form, it will represent and copy the table exactly as it is, including its name. So be careful. With regards to reports, a little bit more to it. You can see here, if we go into the design view, and then if we go into the actual datasheet view, report view, and you can see that this is quite tight. It's on top of each other. So remember, if you go into, you need to look at the things like the layout and orientation, things like that. You go into print and print preview, you get the option to do a landscape. They may ask you in the exam to change it to landscape, so be aware of that. And if you close print preview, you'll go back to your normal tools. If you're in design, you can drag these out, and then you can stretch these out a little bit. They need dragging over. They're all on top of each other by the looks of it. So they might ask you, or you might have to in the real world, if you move one, that's the heading, as it says, page header, and this is where the data is. So if we look at the hours, go into the front end, you can see they're the two things I've just moved. You'd have to move these as well. The other thing you might notice in here is the summary. So let's go back, let's close this and let's do a report with some numerical data in it, so I can show you that. So this one's got the session fee. So let's look at the session fee. So I'm going to close that. So create Report Wizard. We've got a club, we've got a session fee there, so I'm going to take them all over. And then next, it'll ask us to group things by something. Let's group it by club name. So take club name over. Before it was club ref, take that one back. And now we're going to do it by club name. Then next, it's been grouped. Here's the summary options I discussed. So you click in there and you can do a really quick calculation either on session fee or hours. Okay, it takes you back in and then you complete till you get to the next and finish. And then it shows you, there's your calculation there. It's done it by club, different clubs, and then the details within there. And this is my sum there. If you just close that, if you right click on Club 3 report and go into design view, you can actually put in on a session fee, we can put in the hours here to see how it's been written in. Notice that if you put in an equals sum or whatever function you're going to use, it's the normal rounded brackets with the field in square brackets. So let's see how we do that. So let's delete that. Tricky to get hold of it sometimes. Delete it on the edge. And there's the name of it. So we'll delete that as well. So this is the one you use for that. So it's the AB. You draw it out in the area you want it. There's the text, that's what it's going to be called, and you could put sum. And in here, the unbound, we're going to put equal sum, open bracket, square bracket, and we're going to add up the hours, another square bracket, and then finish on bracket off. So then we look at that on the front end, you can see there's my sum, and there's a 2, and there's a 3, etc. Okay, so you can use the summary options if they let you in a wizard, or you may have to actually use the label up here, the text box label, to pop that in manually. You've got page numbers, you can see them here. They're all in this feature here. So there's your page numbers, and you can have them in particular places. Number of pages, okay, pop that in there, and there it's gone into that one there. So reports really useful. You can double click on these and you can have a look. And that's the one we did the test facility. You can bring all sorts of information in and move things around. Okay, you can even put a label in if you want to put your name in. You've got the label next door there, and then you could put a name or something else on there. Oops, what's going on? Let's just leave it, Stephanie. Okay, and then back to the front. So it's been a lot to do with databases, but remember, I'm just going to close this, not save. Remember that you have the slides. So if you're thinking, oh, that was really quick, never got some of that, there's some basic information, just like the other applications, about how to use help, talking about structure. So there's some stuff that you may or may not want to read, but it is there. You've got the things about how you navigate around, and then the different sections. There's your navigation again. And when it comes to, you've got your field properties that we talked about. They're all reminders of stuff we've done. So there's your validation rule. Bring them all up, defining a primary key. So the language is all there, rather than me bogging you down with all of that language, as well as demonstrating. I've used some language to try and get it across, but otherwise you will find that you just don't hear me anymore. So I've tried to do it in a more layperson's way. Have a go at creating a simple database, because it will help you to get an idea of how it works. It's all there in the slides. You can just search them, find out the areas you want, or just stick to the video if you're happy with that. You've got practice to do on this module, practice paper before you do your diagnostic test. So lots of information. And then finally, before I go, the access tricks and tricks, I don't know which way it should be. And it's just reminding you of some of the language that I've been using, some of the principles, in other words, the multiple choice questions you may get asked. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I've been talking about. So it'll help to remind you. Default value, what is it, by the way? We know how to do it. It's just reminding you a wildcard with an asterisk. Modifying a query, make sure you save on the quick access toolbar, etc, etc. There's the sidebar for deletion of form, and reference integrity, the good old yes, no duplicates as well. So all of that stuff's there to help remind you of the terminology. So hopefully with this and with the practice and with the diagnostic, I'm sure you will do well.